I was recently sent this video by a friend who works in antique restoration. She said that she'd never shown it to anyone else because she knew they would unbelieve her. But in the video, you can see what appears to be an old wooden doll with its eyes wide open, sitting on a table in her shop. And right after she turns the camera around to show us the doll's face, it disappears. So let me tell you the full story of the haunted doll so far. My friend had just finished restoring an old rocking horse for a customer when one morning she came into work and found a box in the back room. It was a big box filled with all sorts of old children's toys from a local estate sale that a client wanted restored. The customer told my friend that they were going through their mother's things after she passed away. And since many of these toys brought back childhood memories for them, they wanted her to take a look at them and see if there was anything she could do. So my friend opened up the box, not really expecting much, and that's when she saw it. Tucked away in a corner was this doll, which at first didn't appear to be anything special. My friend assumed that it was made of wood, but that was actually only the outer shell, 'cause once she touched it, she felt something move inside, like some sort of liquid, or maybe even a small animal scurrying around. So she carefully wrapped the doll in a newspaper and set it off to the side. She wasn't going to touch it until she could figure out exactly what it was. A few days later, my friend started going through some of the other toys and soon realized why the doll had been put in a box. Its head and limbs were loose. And when she went to reattach them, she noticed a very disturbing detail. Inside, the legs were two little glass eyes, ones that didn't belong there. They hadn't been part of the doll when it arrived at her store. In fact, she was almost certain that they had grown out of the wood. Now, some of you may be thinking, okay, the doll had glass eyes, so what? Well, here's the thing. Ever since those eyes appeared, bad things have happened to every person who has looked into them. I mean, my friend has had this doll for years now, but before I continue, I want to assure you that this story is 100% true and has been corroborated by multiple witnesses. In fact, my friend has since learned that the doll had already caused problems for its previous owners. Back when it was in the estate sale, people kept coming up to the doll and having freakish accidents. One woman reached out to grab it, only to have a glass eye fall out and land directly in her hand. She screamed and dropped it, then immediately cut her palm on the glass. My friend refused and explained the stories behind it, but the girl insisted that she wanted it anyway. When my friend told her about all the bad things that had happened to people who owned the doll, the girl said that she wasn't scared and would take good care of it, so my friend finally relented. She put the doll in a bag and handed it to the girl, but warned her to be careful. And sure enough, the next day, the girl came back holding the bag with the doll still inside and a giant red bow on top. She told my friend that she had taken it home, but the moment she got near her bed, the doll started moving on its own. Then, when she turned around, the doll was in her closet, so the girl dropped it and ran away crying. My friend took the doll back and placed it on the shelf behind her counter, where it stayed for several months. Then, one day, one of her customers asked if he could buy it. He paid for it and left. But the next day, he came running back in, out of breath and panicked. He told my friend that ever since he got the doll home, he couldn't get rid of the feeling that he was being watched. He said that he had a strange dream about it too. In the dream, a little girl wearing a Victorian nightgown was sitting on his bed, telling him that no one was allowed to leave. And when he woke up, he said he was so freaked out that he could keep the doll and wanted to return it. So my friend took it back and placed it on the shelf again. But then a few weeks later, a guy came in who had heard the story about the doll, and he wanted to see it for himself. He picked it up, examined it, and then looked my friend dead in the eyes and said that he wanted to buy it. So my friend rang him up and then followed him out to his car. She wanted to make sure that he was serious about taking it, and he assured her that he was. But right as he was about to get in his car, my friend suddenly changed her mind and told him that she didn't want to sell it to him. Of course, he was angry at first and demanded to know why, but my friend simply shook her head and walked away. She didn't even want to tell him about all the bad things that had happened to the previous owners, nor did she feel like arguing with him about it. So she just walked away, leaving him standing there dumbfounded. He ended up driving off, but later that evening, my friend got a phone call. It was him, and he was furious. He told my friend that he had a wife and kids and that he needed money. And for her to do this to him, knowing how badly he needed a doll, was cruel. He threatened to come over and take it by force and then hung up. Of course, my friend called the police, but by the time they got there, he was long gone. But then, the next day, she got a visit from his wife. She told my friend that she had heard about the doll and begged my friend to give it back to her husband. She claimed that he had become violent and was acting out of character ever since he had bought the doll. She said that he had even taken it to work with him, and that when things started to go wrong, customers began to complain about seeing a little girl in a Victorian nightgown wandering around the store. And then one of the employees broke their arm trying to move the doll. His wife was worried that he was going to hurt someone, so she begged my friend to buy it back. At first, my friend refused, but eventually she gave in. She met the woman halfway and gave her half of her money back, then watched as she drove off with the doll in the passenger seat. But the next day, both the woman and the doll came back. My friend opened the door and the woman walked in holding the doll. She told my friend that it had tried to strangle her while she was sleeping and she wanted to return it. But at this point, my friend had had enough. She told her to get out and never come back. Then she closed the door and locked it. She didn't want anything to do with the doll anymore. So she placed it in the back room where I found it. After hearing all of this, I immediately told her that she needed to get rid of it, like yesterday. I told her that there was no way I was letting something like that stay in my house, and she agreed, picked it up and carried it out to my car, then drove it to the nearest church. I had seen an episode of Ghost Adventures where they dropped off cursed items at a church, and I figured that it was worth a shot. But when I got out of my car with the doll in my hands, I suddenly felt like I was being watched. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the atmosphere. And then, as I walked toward the front door, I heard screaming in the back. I stopped dead in my tracks and turned around slowly. There was nothing there. I shrugged it off and continued to the door, but then I felt something brush against my leg. I jumped and turned around, but once again, there was nothing there. And that's when I realized that I was being watched by something evil. I don't want to scare you, but I think this doll is possessed. I was immediately regretting my decision to bring the doll into my house and felt like I had unleashed something horrible. So I quickly ran to my car and threw the doll in the back seat. Then I sped away as fast as I could. But then when I got home, my son told me that he had found a doll in the backyard. It was the same doll that I had thrown away. And then when I went to check on my daughter, I found her standing in the middle of the living room holding another doll. We stared at each other in silence for what felt like hours, but really was probably only a few seconds. And then she simply said, "Mommy, we have company." So I turned around to look in the direction that she was facing. I saw the same little girl in the Victorian nightgown from the dream sitting on my couch, smiling.